The heat signature the satellite captured behind Nancy Guthrie's house wasn't from an animal. It was human-sized, it was stationary for 17 minutes, and it disappeared before law enforcement ever bothered to excavate. I need to start there because I have to correct something. In my last video, I said I wasn't sure this case would ever be solved. I let the sheriff's repeated failures color what I knew about the evidence itself. And that was a mistake. The evidence is stronger than the investigation. And now, for the first time, I can tell you why Sheriff Nano's saying, "I think we're getting closer," might actually mean something. Not because I trust him. Because I trust what the forensic timeline now reveals when you line it up with what was never publicly explained. Here is the reframe. We all watched the crime scene get released too early. We watched journalists walk up the driveway. We watched a pizza get delivered past the deputy supposedly securing the perimeter. Chain of custody is the documented and unbroken record of every person who handled a piece of evidence from collection through analysis, and any break in that chain can render the evidence legally unusable. The sheriff created a chain of custody nightmare, and we all assumed that meant the physical evidence was worthless. But there was one category of evidence that does not degrade when the perimeter collapses: biological material already collected and sealed before the scene was compromised. And that material, fingernail scrapings, hair strands, touch DNA on the bedding, is exactly what the Florida lab has been working with since the beginning. Now the central figure, not a name, a profile built slowly, the way an investigator builds it, 6 feet or taller, broad shoulders, the mask pulled tight suggesting a head circumference in the 95th percentile. The surveillance footage shows a gait with a slight right side weight shift, consistent with someone carrying an unbalanced load, or someone accustomed to compensating for an old injury. This person knew the dead end street layout, knew which homes had dogs, knew that Nancy Guthrie was alone in that bed. Behavioral indicators are observable actions that are statistically inconsistent with how an innocent person behaves in a given situation, and here the indicators stack. Sending ransom notes to TMZ and multiple news stations is not a kidnapping for money. It is a kidnapping for attention. The writer used Bitcoin demands but set deadlines that passed with no follow-through, which means the deadlines were stagecraft. Stagecraft requires the person to keep watching, to keep reading coverage, to keep engaging with the public narrative of the case, even as everyone else moved on. This person is not a stranger to the neighborhood. 3 men moved out of a rental on that same street around the time Nancy was taken. We know that. But what we have not discussed is what the property manager told investigators off the record, that one of those men returned twice after the lease ended, once to retrieve mail he claimed was misdelivered, once with no stated reason. He returned to a house he no longer lived in, on a street where an 84-year-old woman had just been abducted, and he did not contact law enforcement to share anything he might have seen. That is a behavioral indicator. That is a piece of a pattern. And the DNA profiles now being run through genealogical databases may already be tracing his family tree backward, relative by relative, until the branches intersect with the evidence bag sitting in Florida. The prosecution case writes itself when you stop looking isolated facts and start seeing chapters. Chapter 1. The surveillance. Neighbors reported an unfamiliar vehicle circling the block on 3 separate nights in the week prior. Tower dump data is the complete record of every cell phone signal captured by a specific tower during a specific time window, which can place a device at or near a. The tower servicing Nancy's neighborhood recorded a device that pinged at 2 in the morning on those same nights and stopped pinging the morning she was taken. Chapter 2. The entry. No signs of forced entry. Nancy's cane was found upright beside the bed, not knocked over in a struggle. Someone she knew or someone she had no reason to fear. Chapter 3. The exit. The satellite heat signature in the fenced area behind the property was stationary for 17 minutes, and then moved east toward the wash, a route you would only use if you understood the terrain and knew exactly where surveillance cameras ended. Chapter 4. The silence afterward. No credible ransom negotiation. No body. No digital footprint, but the mask with DNA, and that DNA has been separated into 2 profiles, 2 DNA profiles, 2 locations, 2 different people. One of them belongs to Nancy, the other belongs to him. Genealogical DNA testing is the process of matching crime scene and not to a known suspect but to that suspect's relatives, building a family tree outward until the unknown individual can be identified. The private lab in Florida has run that analysis. FBI Director Cash Patel publicly pressured the sheriff to coordinate with Quantico, and the response was that the labs are in regular contact. That means a genealogical search is active. That means the unknown profile has been uploaded. That means the clock is no longer ticking toward whether. It is ticking toward who. Now I want you to do something. Go back and look at the screenshot of the mask, not the shape of it, the threading, the seam pattern along the eye holes. I want you to compare that seam to standard balaclava designs sold on military surplus sites versus the cheaper versions sold in Halloween pop-ups. Because if that mask is military grade, it narrows the suspect pool to someone with access to tactical gear. If it is a costume piece, it suggests impulse over premeditation. I have my own conclusion. I want yours. Leave it in the comments with the hashtag #FeeMaskShame. I will read every single one. I know what the strongest objection sounds like. The sheriff is incompetent, the crime scene was contaminated, the ransom notes were a hoax, and this case will never see a courtroom. That argument has weight. Contamination does create reasonable doubt, and any defense attorney will exploit every procedural error Nanos made. But contamination does not erase the DNA that was collected before the scene was opened. It does not erase the genealogical matches that are building right now, independent of the sheriff's mistakes. It does not erase cell tower records or satellite imagery or the behavioral pattern of a man who returned to a rental on a street where a woman was stolen from her bed. The evidence was there. The pattern was there. The answer was there. A good prosecutor can argue chain of custody. A good prosecutor cannot argue DNA away. I am not telling you an arrest is coming tomorrow. I am telling you the investigative process has finally moved past the sheriff's public relations blunders and into the quiet, irreversible work of forensic identification. CODIS is the national DNA database that law enforcement uses to match crime scene DNA against profiles already in the system. If the suspect has a relative in CODIS, they will find him. If he does not, the genealogical search will find a cousin, then a sibling, then a parent, and then it will find him. This is not speculation. This is the known capability of the technology sitting in the Florida lab right now, running the sample Nancy Guthrie's body provided when she fought to get her abductor's skin cells under her fingernails. She fought. The science is fighting now too, and when the identification comes, and it will come, you will hear it on this channel first, without flinching, without pretending we knew it all along. Because we did not know. But we stayed. We stayed when the sheriff released the crime scene. We stayed when the media scattered. We stayed when the case went cold. We are staying now. And when the answer finally lands, we will be here together, ready to walk through every piece of evidence that got us there. So if you have not already, hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. This investigation is not over. It is just entering its final, quiet, unstoppable chapter.